This is Max.
This is Jhyrah. This is Can You Handle the Heat? And this is our first YouTube video. Something we're gonna start try to do now. This is something new for me and Max. And hey, I mean, it's gonna be fun. Gonna
We've
have
hinted
some
at it for a
guests.
while now.
Yeah, we've been at it for a while. It hasn't worked out. I think we tried to record it a few times and just hasn't gone the way we wanted. Um, but go ahead and hopping right into it. College football. Some not semifinal games. Played
Quarterfinal.
quarterfinals. ASU played Texas. Went to overtime. How'd you feel about the game, Max?
I really thought that Arizona State had it. They were one of my teams that I thought people were underrating them a lot, and I was really high on them. I know they'd come out of their Big Ten championship game, very strong. Scatabo had talked about how he was like, I'm the real best running back in college football. Like, I just haven't realized that yet. And I thought he backed it up. I mean, he had like 200 all purpose yards and 2 touchdowns, I think. That was a play in overtime when he literally got like stopped like 4 yards behind the line by like a 300-pounder, and then he still pushed through and went to the end zone. And you get to a situation where I think it was like 4th and 15, and Texas needs to score a touchdown, and you let their best receiver get behind you. I don't know how that happens. I mean, there was nobody on him. I mean, Evers practically lobbed it up there. Like, there was no reason for him to be that open. But I mean, I loved how Arizona State was after the game. Their coach seemed to be everyone seemed to have a lot of respect for their coach. And he took full responsibility for the loss as well, which is something that a lot of fans like to see sometimes. Like, they don't want to ever see you blame it on players, which is something that Gerard Mayo likes to do. But yeah, it's
Yeah,
whatever.
I think for me, I since I just this wasn't a team that I really watched at all this year. Seeing them at the beginning part of the game, I was thinking this team shouldn't be here. Yeah, that's how most people were probably seeing it.
Yeah, no,
Another
everyone thought it was
another
over.
another team that shouldn't get this chance. And then as the game goes on, I think the biggest thing to me, I think the transition was it almost seemed as if they kind of took the ball out of the quarterback's hands and really gave it to the running back, their best player, which is what they should have done from the get go. And immediately, as soon as they did that, I mean, passing touchdown, rushing touchdown, he was literally doing everything. I think now this puts them on the map. They have a young coach. He seems like he has a lot of energy. Like you said, he took accountability for the loss. Now it's what are they going to be now? Are they going to come next year with that same fire? Um, I'm willing to see. I probably pump the brakes and be like, not say it's a one and done, but it's hard to be a consistent team that gets that championship by every single year. But I think they're building something nice. It was cool to see a team like this, new energy. Same with Boise State and Genty and whatnot. But it's going to be a revolving door. These new teams. That's kind of what this whole 12, teams are supposed to be. But I'm glad that a team that wouldn't traditionally get this opportunity, when given the opportunity, made the most of it, unlike some other teams.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I definitely thought it was cool that all 1 through 4 teams lost in that sense as well. I think it gives you a chance for people to be like, oh, this is the real team that deserves to be in over other people. So I think that argument already knocks stuff out of the way because, I mean, I will say as well, it definitely is an advantage, I think, more than a disadvantage to play a game before that next game. Just like, I mean, a month without football is crazy. And for it to be like
Yeah.
on the biggest stage of your career after already playing like a big game. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I thought Genty disappointed a little bit. I know they stacked the box, and I know he played pretty solid, but I think that the pass game just could not open up the running game enough for him, which sucked because I obviously he's a very fun player to watch. But I also thought that Penn State played really well. They've got a lot of good players, and damn, what's their tight end's name? Number 44.
On Penn State,
Yeah.
Tyler Warren.
Yes. Yeah. I think he'll be not like a Brock Bowers level tight end, but I think he could come in and be a level of like
I mean,
just
I
like
don't see
another
why he
tier.
couldn't be like a a watered down version of George Kittle. I mean, kind of a do it
Yeah,
all.
yeah. Just someone like that, like a traditional Big Ten tight end, or like a I don't know, like a Darren Waller. I mean, he's a big target and he's able to run routes, and he's just he's come for them in pretty much every big game. He's been the guy that's been getting stuff done.
Yeah,
Um, which
they were
is
putting him in
interesting
the
to see
running
from a
back
tight
sometimes
end. I
too.
mean, I feel like usually you see more like a receiver or running back making those big plays, but like for their star, quote unquote, to be like the tight end is definitely interesting.
I mean, I think when I look at Penn State, I also like, you know, as you talked about getting the ball to Tyler Warren is Drew Aller. A lot of scouts are really starting to warm up on him. He's already said he's going to come back, and I think he should. Um, you know, Now with the NIL, it's really changed a lot of how quarterbacks can go about the whole process. In previous years, they really had to kind of whenever the steam, was hottest, hop in. But now
Hmm.
it's NIL, I can get 4 or 5 million if I go to another pretty big Power Five school and just compete, getting better, get my skills better. I mean, getting their feet better, getting my release quicker, and getting my mechanics more smoother, things like that. That in previous years they weren't awarded this time. I think even quarterbacks like Quinn Ewers can take advantage of this. People don't really realize this, but because he came into college early, he's only going to be 21. He's turning 22 in March. Jackson Dart's turning 22 in March. I think Drew Aller is also like around that same like. It makes sense for them to stay. I mean, I think Joe Burrow when he came out, he was 23. Like he basically also did that same thing, but just a lot more quieter because he stayed in one place instead of transferring around. But I mean, now if you can make the money in college and still develop and still be on the national stage, so like they're still seeing you, you're still getting the playing against the highest talent. Why not come back? So I mean, hey,
Yeah, I also think he has a lot of respect for Penn State. I think he wants to come back and stay committed. I mean, he announced that he was coming back before the playoffs even started, so I think that shows a level of like, hey, like I want to build something here. As well as their backup quarterback entered the transfer portal, so I don't think he would leave them hanging like that and just have them like have little to no plan next year. So I mean, I think he'll stay true to his word. Although I have some people being like, Drew Allar is my QB1 this year,
yeah,
which I don't hate. I know he's had some off years and some off games in the past, and in the bright lights he's sort of like shying away from it. But these past two games, the lights have not seemed to bother him.
yeah, no, definitely no. I mean, he's playing big. I mean, this is what it's about. This is what the college football play is about. Best players making the best plays at the biggest moments. Um, and then we can talk about Ohio State. They're about to play Texas. Um, Personally, I think Texas is going to win this. Maybe just a little bit more um, for my hate for Ohio State. I really don't. I just don't like Ohio State. It's all I don't know something about me being an LSU fan for some reason. I don't. We haven't even really interacted that much, but I just don't like Ohio State.
They gave you Joe
Um,
Burrow.
they did, but they try to claim him. They're like, no, you never played him. He played for us. Um, but I don't know. Ohio State really is a buzzsaw. But I think what the thing with Texas is legitimately, and it pains me to say this, in their first year, they have shown they are an SEC team. Oklahoma, they're still like they're still no. But Texas came in and they did what they were supposed to do. Um, if you have a lot of money, you should be able to in the SEC, strive pretty well, get those high recruits. Um, but Quinn Ewers, he's doing what he's has to do. Kind of they had the lead and then the game kind of stalled a little bit for him. He still ended up, getting that touchdown there at the end, even scoring a rushing touchdown, um, in end zone. I think the thing with this team is if you're gonna the way to beat Ohio State is you have to figure out how to slow them down. And if you can start to slow down Ohio State, it seems that maybe they might start to question themselves. Um, but the problem is slowing them down. I mean, in that game against Oregon from the get go, it was just boom, big play, big play, big play, touchdown. and then that's how every drive went. There was no third down, fourth down we have to go for. It was almost like it was just butter for them. So it's gonna be interesting to see how Texas will try to stop all these dynamic players for Ohio State. But I think at the end of the day, Steve Sarkisian, I mean, he was alongside Nick Saban. I think there's probably a good trust brain bubble around him and his team. Where they're already looking at ideas of ways that previous teams, how Michigan stopped them, how you know uh, Oregon stopped them in the first time. That game it went down to the very last second, and Ohio State ran it out. So maybe try to get I don't know, try to maybe go Steelers route and try to make the game a little bit muddy and bring it down to the last second, knowing that Ryan Day and his squad may not have the best time management.
Yeah, I will say as well. I think this was a personal game for Ohio State. Just reaching back to like the Oregon game real quick. You go back to when they played in the regular season, and Will Howard is running around trying to slide down and get a couple seconds on the clock for a last second field goal to win the game, and he takes too long. Um, that's a game that I think Ohio State was the better team, and then they had to sit on the sideline and watch two teams that were not named Ohio State in the Big Ten championship, and people saying, "Oh, Ryan Day could be fired," stuff like that. And I think they really want to come in and punch him in the mouth. That's exactly what they did. I think that Jeremiah Smith is the best receiver in football. I think he'd be the number one overall pick this year, straight up. And as well, I think Ohio State's just going to be too much for them. I like them a lot, and that's saying a lot for coming from like a Michigan State like mutual like respect. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, and you could argue the same thing how Penn State had a mindset with James Franklin. A lot of people wanted him fired. He came in and they want to show up for their coach. I think these people are really, I don't think they're playing for their jobs as much as they are anymore. So I'll be interested to see how they perform now. Um, in my mind, I don't see how Texas can keep up with Ohio State in my mind. I don't think their offense is that
Fair.
good.
I mean, but I think maybe where the talent is where the coach may come in. I think Ohio State really benefits a lot from having talent. Not saying that they're not drawing up good plays, but similar to a Ben Johnson in the NFL, where it's I wouldn't say that the Lions against the other top NFC talent has better talent. It's more so that out of their talent because they have a better coach, they're able to be creatively score touchdowns. So I think you see kind of the hook and ladder thing that Texas kind of did it a few times. They're willing to do some creative plays, maybe see if they can catch Ohio State off. I mean, Ohio State historically known as a really CJ Caleb Downs. They have some ball hawks out there, so don't get too cute with it. At the end of the day, you need to if you're going to win the right way, making timely routine plays. But you sometimes throw in that trick play. It might catch a team that's so prepared off guard because they never expected that to come. Um, but okay. So what do you think the score is going to be? I think it'll be a shootout. And
Oh, absolutely.
I'm gonna say 38-34 Texas over Ohio State.
That's like around what I was thinking. Maybe not as big. I'll say like 31-21. That's not much of a
31-21.
shootout, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think there's gonna be a lot of field goals in this game unless like they absolutely have to. I think everyone's gonna be really trying to sling the rock, and I think it'll be a matter of just not necessarily whose offense is better, but whose defense is able to like slow them down the most. And I just don't think there's much you can slow down. I think that Ohio State just has too many weapons. They've got two elite running backs, and they've got a great receiving core, and they've got a great veteran quarterback as well.
Yeah, that's fair. All right. Moving on to the next game of the college football playoffs. You got Penn State versus Notre Dame. We're again on different sides of this one. I mean, you obviously believe in this Notre Dame team more than me. I don't know. I feel like to me, I think this is the same Notre Dame team of always.
I don't know. I called it my dark horse, like between them and Arizona State in the past. I mean, it's a team that's been in the college football playoff before, a team that's been there before. They've got a great young coach that's super fired up, and they all love the absolute crap out of him. Not to say that all these teams there don't, but I mean, people are really passionate about Marcus Freeman. Everyone knows he's a great guy, and he has a mean ass defense. I think this will be a very low scoring game because I think Penn State also has a great defense, but I can't see either team scoring more than four touchdowns at the absolute most. I think this is going to be very nitty gritty, a lot of running the ball, a lot of short gains, a lot of time clock waste, and just getting what the defense gives you. Um, I love the fact that Riley Leonard gives you a dual threat, and the fact that they run him a lot, they run Jeremiah Love a lot. But then you've also got Penn State. They've got a great running back, and they've got a great quarterback, as well as they've got that tight end that we talked about earlier. So it'll definitely be a close game, but I've got Notre Dame winning probably in a close one. I'll say like 21-17, something like that.
Yeah. No, I'm probably going to side with Penn State on this one. Simply for the fact of I think when it comes down to the most important position on the field, everyone agrees it's quarterback. And a team that I think we also both agree has the best quarterback is Penn State. In previous years, people have tried to label Penn State as a fraudulent team, and I don't think that's necessarily the case. It's more so when you're playing in these elite conferences, there's so many teams that are going to be at the top, and it's going to be about the same teams. If you can't there's a minimum amount of difference really between what makes them better than you. And for the last few years, it really has been that the other teams have had that just a little bit more inkling um, of talent. I think this year Penn State's kind of putting it all together. They have some of the big wins, they've had some losses. You need all of that to now when it comes to most important to play your best. And that's exactly what they're doing. Drew Aller, 3 touchdowns in one game, 3 touchdowns in another game. I mean, he's putting up big yards, running. Like you said, the running back, they have a good run defense. I think the thing to me is Notre Dame, since they're independent, they can kind of craft the schedule they want. Not to say that,
Yeah,
I mean, all the teams aren't also doing that, but it's a little bit harder to have to go against a team that knows you so intimately, like Ohio State, like Michigan, over and over and over every single year. Where these kids, I mean, they're there for like 4 years throughout the whole program, 4, 5, 6 years. So it's like I'm gonna learn who that running back is. I've played against him last year. I know when he, cuts this way, he likes to do this, that. Um, there's things like that. So they can kind of play against people who don't have a full grasp on them. But I think Notre Dame, it does have a good defense. And like you said, I think it really is going to be one of those games where who can make that last winning play. Um, and for the fact that I believe more in Drew Aller and I believe in Riley Leonard, who I think is a talented
that's
quarterback
fair.
who, but like I said to you earlier, he is more of his biggest skill when anyone looks at him is, oh wow, he can really run really well and pass. When Drew Allard, he can pass and he looks like he's becoming one of those who can make the routine, check downs and all the sort of different quarterback plays, and he can run. So for that, I'm probably going to say 24-17. Penn State beats Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Um,
I do think it's. I mean, these two games are completely different, opposite ends of the spectrum. So regardless what the matchup is, it'll be a battle of is your offense better than our defense in the championship. I mean, and in a game like that, I'd probably favor Penn State in the championships because I don't think Notre Dame's offense is as good. But I know that their defense is elite. So I think they have a better chance at stopping whoever they would play in the championship. But as far as being able to keep up with the offense, I just don't think they'd be able to do it.
Yeah, and I think that's ultimately when it comes down to being one of the best, where that gap starts to widen a lot more when you're playing games like this. And, hopping into the NFL, everyone knows about everyone's been hearing about Eric Dickerson's rushing record that goes all the way back, and Saquon coming up, creeping up on it in 17 games. Do you think the Eagles should have let Saquon go for rushing record?
I think yes. Again, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity to do. I mean that record stood for a long time for a reason. It's gonna be extremely hard to break. You look at a guy like Saquon Barkley who does have injury history. You do think that you have a team like the Eagles that is going to be able to contend for the Super Bowl. And of course, there's reasons you might want to sit, but I just think, I mean, it's the Giants. I think you can probably get like 6 or 7 carries from Barkley, and that'll get you the 100 yards, and it could come out. And I mean, if that offensive line was not going to get hurt, and I mean, I don't know. I mean, I get why they sat him. It's just disappointing. I don't like the idea of sitting players. Period. I think it sucks. And same thing with like, for example, I mean, this is off topic, but like the Chiefs sitting players is going to probably keep the Bengals out of the playoffs just because the Broncos get to play a cupcake team. I hate that. I think you should always play uh, to win. Um, so there's that.
Yeah, and I see both sides. Just because I have, as a fan, been on both sides. I think I also agree. I think Saquon should have gone for it, but I think they should have gone for it for a different reason. Of it's not guaranteed that you're going to win the championship, no matter how good your team is. No matter you could have the best player, best team, everything, but at the end of the day, you could play somebody and on that one day they're better than you. That's just how the NFL playoffs go. It's not like NBA, where really the best team is usually winning because it's over a series. At the end of the day, I feel like NFL players play for legacy because when you're getting a championship, why are you getting it for your legacy? Um, it's not guaranteed you're going to get a championship, but it would have been guaranteed forever that the legacy of the offensive line, the whole Eagles team, Saquon, would have forever been known as getting this rushing record. And I think to not go against, like you said, a Giants team that they don't want to win anyways. And also, I think if he would have got hurt in the amount of minimal rushes, probably less than 12, it would have taken him to get the 100 so yards that he needed. He was always going to get injured because at the end of the day, this has been his largest workload he's played all year. I think it's actually he's still getting the rest, and I think it's better to let his body kind of experience, like simulate a little bit of a game because I mean, playing the Giants would be more like practice for him.
Exactly.
Um, let him get a little stimulate his body a little bit, but then bring him back, sit him once he breaks a record before the half, and then go about your day. And if he doesn't break about a half, he never would have broken anyway, um, kind of thing. But I think going back to something you had said about, I think it is smart actually, especially in their sense of Mahomes has been grinding it out all year in these close games. Because their team has been lacking minimal talent because of injuries, and now they're finally getting healthy. Don't play anyone because everyone who's played on this team has somehow freakishly gotten injured, from Rasheed Rice to like just no, just don't play him. I think it's a smart thing. However, I think Carson Wentz apparently in league circles I've seen online, people are thinking about Carson Wentz as the next Sam Darnold. I hope that does not happen. For the game of football, I hope that does not happen. But if he is, I mean, look at this game as they're probably. I mean, I think players like Watson and Xavier Worthy are probably still going to be out there.
Hmm.
I would assume because they're young. So, I mean, if Carson Wentz is really this former MVP candidate, type veteran quarterback, it should be decent. I mean, you even seen in previous years. I think I can't remember exactly. I think it was Chase Daniels, but I'm not exactly sure who the backup quarterback was. But there was a time, and not too far off, where Chiefs backup came in and they looked all right. I don't see why, if Carson Wentz isn't absolutely horrible, shouldn't be able to do the same. So I don't know. We'll see.
I definitely think
Obviously,
he's one of the better backups in the league.
maybe, yeah, better than Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Better than Jimmy Garoppolo.
Hmm.
Okay, I'd put them in the same
Not better
sphere.
than Joe Milton, but
Gardner Minshew.
yeah.
Okay, Justin Fields,
No.
JJ McCarthy.
Don't know. It's a question mark. We haven't seen him play.
Fair, fair. Okay. I don't know. I guess we'll
You're telling
see
me he couldn't
next year.
start for like the Titans?
Carson Wentz. I think if he started for the Titans, I don't realistically think that they'd be very much better than they are now. I think it'd be
Exactly.
about the same. I think he's like I think he is better than Mason Rudolph. He is just as good as Jimmy Garoppolo. With a competent offense and decent enough players, you're going to get a decent enough result.
Okay.
But I don't think if you gave him better players, it would make it like even then. Um, I don't know. That's how I feel though. But it hurts me to say it because our next topic is one that hits a little bit close to home. But maybe someone needs to say it because it's looking pitiful out there. My Steelers, 4 losses in a row. Cincinnati, we just lost to. Eagles, Ravens, Chiefs in that time period. We did play 3 games in 11 days, but that does not matter to me because we should have still at least got one of those wins. I think looking back on this 4-game skid for my team, it doesn't necessarily change how I think about this team because I think this year was a step forward in a way of competing, but a step backwards in our um, standard that we hold for people. I feel like Mike Tomlin has always been a coach that he's always said, I will play whoever is the best player on every day. Back in the day when we had Big Ben, even when he was playing at his worst, there was still no quarterback on our roster who was better than him. Because even at his worst, he could still put up a 300-yard game. He kind of played similar to James Winston out in
Yeah,
his towards the end of his career, where high yards, just a lot of interceptions. Um,
which I'm fine with that.
yeah, exactly. With Russell Wilson, at the beginning when we made the switch, it looked perfect. We were, had a lot of rushing yards. We were making big plays down the, in the end zone, down the field. Everything was
The
working, and now it starts to slow down. I think if you're going to be so quick to take Justin out after going 4-2, when as soon as we went 6-3, so we lost, before this Cincinnati team. I think going into this game, I'm telling Russ, hey Russ, you know, your championship quarterback. You've done a lot for us, but Justin also has proved his worth. If we go into this game and it looks like a lot of the last 3 games, we're gonna have to make change. I think we should have put Justin in that drive that started right there at the end of that third to see if he could have been that energy. And in the past, these past few weeks, it's been a lot of players on the defensive side pointing fingers. TJ Watt's production has been down. I think what makes the Steelers so magical is, or I guess so good at times, is we can make those magical plays. And you kind of saw it with the Beanie Bishop interception, where it was like no one else could have got the interception but him. You know what I mean? Like it was one of those ball hawk moments where it was just like his instinct kicked in and he grabbed it 2 centimeters off of the ground. Um, Things like that, where it's like when you have a team that's built off of players making those magical moments to win, you aren't a team that can win off of routine plays. You have to take advantage of what the other team gives you. That is exactly what this team is. They are a team that takes advantage of what the other team gives them. And these past 4 games, we have missed out on lots of opportunities. We need to get turnovers. We've been knocking the ball out, but it's just been either going out of the out of bounds or the other team's recovering it. If you're going to force the fumble, get it. I don't know I don't know, what I can say to make that happen or what, how you can change that, but it's like you're doing everything but the finish. It's like crossing the guy up and then shooting the 3 and then bricking it. Hey man, it looked cool up until they got the ball back. We don't care. I don't know. I think, is it too late to put Justin in the playoffs?
yes.
Realistically, yes. However, I think why not play with a Justin Fields package at least? I mean, obviously we haven't been good in the red zone. I mean, if there's any time to try something, it's when your back's against the wall and everyone thinks that um, you're going to be bad anyways. Why not try? Why not? I mean, what's the worst that could happen, realistically? I mean, everyone's expecting us to continue the streak of not getting a playoff win since 2016. Internally, there's probably even some people thinking that themselves. I think at the end of the day, we should play with a why not attitude and kind of just put balls to the walls, throw everything that we can do. But I honestly think it's more likely that we get a playoff win similar to the Browns last year and then lose than not get a play. I think it's because if the Steelers, no matter what now, the Steelers are going to play either the Ravens or the Houston. Neither one of those teams are bad matchups for us. We know the Ravens very well because we play them 2 times a year. In the past few matchups, we have their number. And even in that game last time, Lamar played a lot better, but we were right there. A few mistakes, and that could have been our game. Um, so I don't know. In the Houston, I'm not super sold on CJ Stroud, especially with Tank Dell going down. It looked like they had a different connection. And he's probably still working on his connection with Nick Collins. So I don't know. I think we can get a playoff win, but ultimately the goal of getting a Super Bowl is out of my team's grasp for another year.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say it was panic mode because look at the four teams you lost to. I mean, they're four extremely good teams, four teams that you could argue are contending first of all, maybe excluding the Commanders. But I don't know. I think you have to ask questions about the offensive coordinators that have came through Pittsburgh the last few years, and I said this to you earlier, but I mean Canada and who is it now? I mean it's been
Arthur Smith.
yeah, it's been three people that have been notoriously pretty known for like kind of being a terrorist on offense. And I don't know, I think you're just wasting the defensive production and the head coaching like superpower that Tomlin has. For whatever reason, they just don't have the ability to go and hire an offensive coordinator that would like to have fun playing football. I don't know. I think y'all play offense to not lose, and for y'all to have Justin Fields on roster but not use him. I mean, there were talks even when Russell was the starting, like supposed to be starting quarterback over the offseason, be like, oh, there should definitely be some times where J5 is out there, and
And
you're
there
running an
was.
option or
Yeah. But
something.
they haven't done it recently.
Yeah, and I know it's extremely hard to pull a starting quarterback, especially when you're heading into the playoffs. Like you can't realistically do that. It would have to take something really bad for you to pull Russell Wilson out of the game. And at that point, I feel like the game's probably going to be out of reach. And I don't know if Justin Fields is someone that can put a game, they can lead a comeback, but he's someone that can put a game away, and certainly run out some clock. And we've seen him do that. Um, I don't know. I going into the year, I don't think Steelers were known as Super Bowl like contenders. Definitely like playoff AFC Championship possible contenders. But again, it's not time for me to panic for the Steelers yet. I think there's definitely still some things to add. But I think most importantly, it's finding someone that wants to be creative on offense, or I don't know, maybe another star receiver to help out George
Yeah.
Pickens. Like, I know y'all were linked to Adam Thielen. I thought that would have been a really good get. We've seen how much he's been balling for the Panthers.
I
I know he's
mean,
an older guy and he's a veteran
yeah.
guy, but I mean, that's with the free agency the way it is this offseason. There's not really many people out there like that other than George Pickens, and I don't think that George Pickens is gonna, or I mean, T Higgins. I don't think T Higgins is gonna go to Pittsburgh.
Well, I will say one thing.
Okay.
T. Higgins he is from Pittsburgh, played at Pittsburgh. That's a reason for him to go there, but I don't think we'd get him. But if he was willing to, we would offer him whatever he wanted because we've already shown that we would pay someone that money. Um, that's why I kind of think I think last watching George Pickens, there's a lot of concentration drops. His mind just wasn't in that game. And I think having a player like Devontae Adams or Adam Thielen could have helped because I think they would have shown him what it's like to be a professional day in, day out, which I think is his. I think he has the talent to be one of these all world guys. He just needs to put it together every single day, every game. Um, I don't know. I don't dis. I actually didn't hate Arthur Smith this year because unlike Matt Canada, it was unbearable. Where I'm like, our team just isn't putting together winning plays. Where it almost seems now is as if what we're doing is going towards something that's trying to win, trying keyword. Um, but it's our guys can't operate it. I mean, Russ is getting sacked. I feel like a lot of the time Russ is getting sacked. It wasn't even because the offensive line. And people are going to say our offensive line, but I honestly feel like our offensive line is giving Russ a decent amount of time
Yeah.
on most of these plays. It's just he's not getting away. And then when he does throw the ball away, it's like, why did you not take a shot there? If the whole offense is predicated on big shots are the only way we can survive, when if much time when he got sacked, it was because he gave himself up and almost kind of just bundled himself up and fell, and got sacked. Okay, I'm totally fine with that. You're 35-year-old. Your best ability is your availability.
Yeah.
However, obviously, when you're getting out of the pocket, your whole entire career has been making those moments outside of the pocket. Throw the ball like down the field. I think, like you said, our offense is to trying not to lose a game instead of trying to win the game. And at times we have been aggressive, um, but it's just like I don't even know what we can change. It's just like Fryermuth had a chance right there at the end. It was an easy catch. If he would have caught that, we would have got the field goal. We would have won. I don't know what it is about the preparation of the team. Because I think Mike Tomlin is a great leader of men. I love to listen to him talk all the time. But something is going on in the team on both sides, defense and offense. Of the team is just obviously not concentrated on the goal, which should be winning. So going to this playoffs, like I said, we have a chance where neither one of these teams that we're slated to play against should really blow us out. Either way, at the end of the day, it should be a close game if win or lose.
Who is it between?
But if Texans or Ravens, it just depends on who wins today on Sunday.
Like if the Texans win?
No, other teams.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
Who would
but
you
no
rather
matter what,
play?
I would rather. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie. I'd rather play the Ravens. The tech. Oh, we played the Texans last year in CJ Stroud's first year, and he carved us up. And
Yeah, and look what he's done this year. He's a completely different
no,
player. It's
no,
it's a
no, no, bro.
completely different player.
No, bro. No, I'm telling you, the Ravens, at
Are
least,
Super
and
Bowl
also
contenders.
Zay Flowers also might not be playing. So
It doesn't matter.
I'd rather. I am very confident that the Steelers have a very good formula on how to contain Derek Derrick Henry. He might get yards, but how to keep him out of the end zone. And we also know how to do the same thing with Lamar Jackson. CJ Stroud, and his one chance that he got to play against us, Mike Tomlin has a really good record against rookie quarterbacks. That's one rookie quarterback that got the best of him. I'd rather not play him, but if we did, I don't think that I'm like super scared. I'm just saying, if you ask me who out of the two, I'd rather play the team that we know the most about than the team that when we played against them, we got blown out, and it was only a year removed. And like you said, not much changed about either team.
See, I get it from that sense, but I just think that the Ravens are such a better like the Texans are beat up. They are beat up. They're missing a lot of key players. Morally, they're down. I mean, Stroud is playing without his quote unquote best friend. He said it was like terrible to watch his like friend tank down. And I mean, I don't know. I do not think the Texans are really good at all. I think they're definitely a first round exit, and I think y'all will get very lucky to be able to play them. If y'all play them, you 100% are winning. hundred
Man,
percent.
I mean, like I said, I believe that we can win either one of those matchups. Should I mean, who do I feel more comfortable about?
You can't beat the Ravens.
We can't or we won't. It's
Both. Both. Whatever you
Stop it.
prefer. Whatever you
Stop it.
prefer. Whatever you prefer.
We're one of those teams. It's one of those matchups where it doesn't matter how good the teams are. It's just on that day, who wants to win it more.
The Ravens.
We'll see. I mean, we'll see. We will see. I mean, it should be the Ravens. It should be the Ravens. However, if they really care about this matchup, I mean, the Steelers should put up a fight. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. But I mean, looking ahead to past because I mean, most of the games today they're going to be playing on week 18. Um, kind of more so just have implications on who people are going to be seated rather than who's going to be in. Like, depending on a few games, it's more are the Rams going to be 4 or 5 or 3 or 4, and then depending on who wins, the Bucks could either be 3 or 4, or the Falcons could be 4, depending on who wins in these past few days. And then also, of course, like you said, if the Broncos lose to the Chiefs, and then the Jets also beat the Dolphins, Cincinnati's in. But if the Broncos beat the Chiefs, Broncos are in. I'm trying to think of any other scenarios. I think Miami can still get in. I guess if the Broncos lose and they beat the um, Jets. So a few different scenarios that can still play out, but for the most part, it is kind of settled. Who do you think out of the teams, that are still in this race, they're gonna be the two teams from both sides representing AFC, NFC in the Super Bowl?
So we talked about it a little bit before. I purely out of hate for the Chiefs refuse to pick them as my AFC person coming out of the AFC, which is ironic because I'm going with the Bills, and as y'all know, I'm a Patriots fan, so it's very hard to pick a division rival. But I mean, I respect Josh Allen a lot, and I think the Bills have an extremely good offensive line. They have a win by any means necessary. The only thing that's suspect is their defense, which, when faced against that offense that seems to be really starting to click with the Chiefs, I think they're going to be a very tough game and a very tough out. But my ideal world would have the Bengals making the playoffs, the Chiefs having to play the Bengals, and the Bengals absolutely beating the piss out of the Chiefs because the Bengals would 100% win that game. And then the NFC, again, I used to like the Lions. I don't know if I do anymore. Maybe it's just because they're too cocky. I also don't like what's his name? The guy who has the dirty hits. Is it Kirby Joseph?
I think he's at a few, maybe.
I don't know. I just I don't really. I'm not a big fan of the Lions anymore. Um, and I would much rather see pretty much everyone on the NFC in there over that. I mean, I wouldn't mind to see the Packers there. I wouldn't mind to see the Vikings there. But my pick to make it is the Eagles. Eagles are a team that were in the Super Bowl a couple years ago, and they were really close to getting it, and they didn't. Last year, a bit of a letdown. This year, they're back. They went out and they splashed hard on running back in Saquon Barkley, that is playing the best football of his career. That's not crazy to say because he's a rushing record. Um, yeah, that's a team that's really coming together. Their defense has looked a lot better the last few weeks as well. Um, it wouldn't shock me to see a Chiefs versus Eagles rematch, which would be very cool. But I think it will be the Bills and the Eagles.
Yeah. I mean, I think those are very valid teams. I'm kind of taking a little bit of a different approach. Both my teams are predicated over, I think, legitimately, when we talk about teams that get to the Super Bowl, and I really thought about teams in the past, but I think about teams that have made it, and maybe that's because of the narrative that they make once they make it to the Super Bowl. There's a certain level of magic you have to be a team to get to the Super Bowl. And maybe it's because all of those teams that make it to those, championship games and both respective conferences deserve to be there. The Lions are a team that had that magic a few years ago. They were a horrible team when Dan Campbell first got them, but the ownership stayed and let them really go about the process of getting better and better and better. They got Jared Goff, a guy who was cast out from the Rams, as a guy who said they couldn't get them over the hump, and they traded for Matthew Stafford and did it. So obviously he probably has a chip on his shoulder and wants to show the whole world that, hey, I can be a championship guy too myself. Um, I'm wrong. He wants to be like, I want to be one of the best, wide receivers. He kind of has that mentality. But he had a lot of injuries, and even with all of those injuries, people have said that they can't, be one of those top teams, and they still found a way to have wins. At the end of the day, they're 14-2 right now, with a chance to be the number one seed in the NFC. I think their team, their offense is definitely leading their team, and their defense has given up a lot of points. However, their defense has been just good enough because of their coach, their defensive coordinator, Aaron Glenn, to make enough pivotal moves to sway the game their way. And at the end of the day, that's where you have to be to win a championship. You have to be good at all three phases: offense, defense, special teams. Um, so I think the fact that they can still produce those results even when they may not have those players that they had back in the day shows how good that they are. And they're only getting healthier. They had that one linebacker who's coming back recently. Apparently Hutch might come back if they make it to the Super Bowl. There's a lot of things that are as time goes on, people are getting healthier. So it's going to be. I think they're a team that, because of how good offensively and because of Ben Johnson's ability to just make a play that works, you can never count them out. And then I'm gonna have to go with the Chiefs. Um, Patrick Mahomes is slowly, not even slowly, right in front of our eyes, becoming exactly what we thought of Tom Brady as one of those guys that no matter how much when you look at his team's talent, you think this team can't get it done, they still get it done. Um, Throughout the year, analysts, fans, everyone has been saying this team is just not good enough to do what they need to do to be a Super Bowl team. At the end of the day, they have not. They haven't lost. They just haven't. They have found a way not to lose. Um, I think there was an infographic that came out before they played the Steelers on Christmas Day of teams that hadn't scored 30 points, and they were on it. And it was mostly teams that were like 3-13, records around there. Even then, they still found a way to, they scored 30 plus points on Steelers. They got a dub. They're still finding ways to win. And now they get back Hollywood Brown. It
It's
seems like
wish magic,
Xavier.
bro.
It, facts. I mean,
It's I don't know
Xavier
how they do it.
Xavier Worthy, it seems like he somehow went from not being able to run the right route to now he's running the perfect route, scoring multiple touchdowns. Travis Kelce starting to come back on. They just got Pacheco back. It really seems like everything is just lifting. And this whole entire year, Patrick Mahomes has had his most, meh year of his career. And that's simply because they're playing a brand of football that's winning football. I think they're playing a very similar brand of football to Steelers. The difference is they have those guys that can help get those magical moments more often and more routinely than Steelers can. And that's why at the end of the day, I just can't choose anyone else, because if they can't get this repeat this year, I don't know of any team that will be able to come back and replicate something like this. So for that, I'm probably choosing the Lions and the Chiefs as my two Super Bowl teams, and probably favoring the Chiefs as Super Bowl winner.
Yeah, again, I would never actually say that as like my actual prediction, but in a much more like realistic world, it's going to be very hard for someone to beat the Chiefs again this year. Which I mean, saying that at the beginning of this year, I know they've had a lot of close games, but I think the identity of a elite team is being able to win in those close games, and every playoff game is like that. And every game they've treated like a playoff game. They've gritted it out. They've blocked field goals. They've broken up last second plays. They've thrown last second touchdowns. They've gone for long drives. They've stopped people on when you needed it most to get the ball back. I don't know. I mean, Steve Spagnuolo is an insane defensive coordinator. Andy Reid is an insane head coach. Patrick Mahomes is back to looking like Patrick Mahomes. Travis Kelsey is looking great. I think Xavier Worthy, as you said, has been balling. I think he has a touchdown in like 3 straight games or something like that. Um, but yeah, and the fact that they're adding Hollywood Brown to that, which may not sound like a lot, but when you look at what the receiving core was, other than that,
I think he's a big piece. Honestly, I think he was the guy they wanted to build around this year, and I think now getting him back, like it just brings back their whole entire plans of what they want it to be.
could you imagine if they had Rasheed Rice still?
Exactly. Imagine Rasheed Rice, Xavier Worthy, and Hollywood Brown.
uh,
They would for sure be the best team in the league by
and
far.
they still are. And they still are. Uh,
When will they lose?
to the Bills.
We'll see. Hey, we'll see. Um, and switching sports, we're going to college basketball. We have a few different topics about this. Do you want to talk about the? You want to talk about my team, or do you want to talk about the group first?
These are what your team first. I know you're
My
itching.
team. Okay, so ten, had
It's
to
been
sit
a
up, bro.
while.
It has been a while. It's been,
That's why I'm
and
letting you
like you
have this on.
and like you said, you said this to me multiple times that it just feels better when certain teams in college basketball are good, and Louisville is one of those teams.
Yeah.
And with Pat Kelsey, we've really been able to come back, and it's been good watching this team, even with all the tragic injuries to Kayshawn, Corin, um, Alec Khalifa sitting out. We're still finding ways to win because of Chucky Hepburn, just being one of the best point guards in the nation right now. I think he's averaging around like 15 points,
Mm-hmm.
6 assists. I think like two something steals.
It's
Um,
16, 3, 6, and 3.
yeah, insane. I mean, insane. He really is like one of the best two-way players in the nation right now, and that's really what is revolving around our game. But even then, we have guys like Rain Smith, absolute three-point specialist, um, just playing their role to the absolute perfection. Literally, not better than you could ask. And one thing that they've been saying in every single game, and every single game has been really close for us. Um, is we can't shoot threes. But the thing is, when you look at our team historically and how we're made, because we're made of all transfers, all these players, not only have they just been good 3-point shooters, they've made a lot of threes everywhere they've been. Noah Waterman at BYU hit 100 threes last year. I fully believe he's at a new program and a new part of the country. It's going to take some time to just get his life settled, stuff. But
Yeah.
I fully believe as the season goes on, it's coming to January, February when we need him the most. He already hit a game winner for us, and 2 games ago. I fully believe that when it comes time, he's going to start hitting hit the clip that he's supposed to. But then we also just got back Traore, who had a really big game against Virginia coming out. It was his third game back from injury. He scored 15 points and 8 rebounds, 9 points in the first half. He was just really big. Um, with the roster we have now, it was already supposed to be deep, but everyone who plays from Kanai Roots to Traore now, everyone has to be winning pieces. And I really believe with Pat Kelsey, he's coaching them up in the right way. And I haven't even talked about Terrence Edwards from JMU, who averaged 17 points last year, and he had I think 4 games this year already. He scored like 20 points. Javon Hadley, he's like leading. He's like in the top league leaders of double doubles. At 6'4", he's getting rebounds and points. At six
He's your
four, he's
leading
leading.
rebounder. Leading rebounder.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. You just can't like ask someone to be that versatile, but he is, and he does. Like that's who he is. Um, so I think with how winning this team is, right now we got to start separating ourselves in the ACC in league play. We're gonna have some big games coming up. We're playing a really good Clemson team next. Um, it's gonna be some big moments, and there's probably going to be some games that we lose that are going to be heartbreakers, games that we win that we probably shouldn't have, but at the end of the, stuff like that. I really think that this team can be a tournament team to, and once you make it to the tournament, it's whatever. It's you made it to the tournament. Now it's just make the most of your moment. But I really think they can be one of those teams that consistently build on something this season. But it's just good to finally have back that basketball pride, to see the stands when I'm watching the games, filled and everything. And I just, like you said, basketball is just better when Louisville's better. But then also, we beat UNC, and I'm going to stand on my claim that I said to Robert and Max. I fully believe that UNC and Louisville will both be tournament teams. I feel like I can almost guarantee Louisville. UNC, I'm kind of putting a little bit more on I'm putting more on the risk by saying UNC will get in there, but I I have faith that both UNC and Louisville will be in those 7 to 8 teams. I believe will make it from the ACC to the tournament.
Yeah. You sort of talked about him towards the end there, but I thought Terrence Edwards and Javon Hadley were two guys that I saw y'all add over the transfer season. I was like, wow, like those are two really legit players that I feel like people don't know their name as much because I think
Playmakers.
Javon Hadley was probably like the third biggest name on that Colorado team last year. And JMU's, I'm like, oh, he's
Yeah.
coming from JMU. No, Terrence Edwards, if you watch him in the tournament, you could tell he's an elite scorer. Um, and those are two guys that I just really I'm very high on, and I'm very high on Pat Kelsey. When Louisville hired them, uh, I know a lot of people are like, oh, College of Charleston, whatever, like some small school. College of Charleston's a school that's been in the tournament pretty much every year, and you could tell that he
Because of
comes in,
Kelsey.
but the energy he comes in. I mean, you talked about like he's a coach that lives and breathes basketball. You could tell that he brings a lot of fire. I mean, I've seen clips of him walking around campus, like telling people, everyone come to the game, stuff like that. Make sure you'll be there, taking his time out of his day to go and hang out with the students and try and bring the life back into Louisville. And you've seen that impact that he's had. And when you think about how he constructed this exact roster, no one was here last year, not any of these players. I don't think, unless you
Yeah.
can correct me.
No.
So
No.
he
No.
built this entire team by himself, and I know you have a lot of NIL money, but you look at teams that have a lot of NIL money and that are not producing. And I know the
Exactly.
ACC might be a little bit on of a downturn this year, but that's at the exact time when Louisville is striking right. And this is what I thought State was going to do this year. They were able to build on momentum and bring in and establish themselves as a top 4 ACC team in a year where the ACC is down. They immediately capitalize on that. So yeah, as far as both of those teams making the tournament, I think it'd be really tough just because of how poor the ACC has been overall. I think that those there's gonna have to be 6 teams that separate themselves, and you really just gotta hope that everyone else just starts losing like crazy. And you need those quad one wins, and I think there's only 2 or 3 quad one teams in the ACC, so it's gonna be very hard for them to squeak into the tournament just because they do value those net rankings a lot. But yeah, I think Clemson's a really big test. I mean, and so is Pitt. I think those are 2 really big teams that I think in the next 2 be 2 big tests to
Yeah.
see how legit Louisville is. Yeah, Hepburn I've watched a lot of just because I watch Big Ten basketball a lot. I liked him a lot at Wisconsin. Was sort of surprised to see him transfer, but glad to see that he's fitting in well. I was surprised more teams didn't reach out to him. I don't know. I understand. Again, you'll have a lot of NL money, but I feel like the players y'all went out and got were like
Winning players.
winning players, and everyone was sort of like overlooking them. It was like, y'all, like Louisville like might be really good. And I said it before. I said that Louisville would be like a dark horse to win the ACC. You can check my Twitter; it's on there. I said like as soon as y'all had started, I was like Louisville is my dark horse to win the ACC. Um, that might be realistic just because of how Duke looks, but I mean, hey, stranger things have happened. And y'all put them pretty close. I would take a 10-point loss to
Yeah.
Duke. That's fine.
It was. I'd say it was more like a. It was probably more like a 5 point game, but they were definitely going to beat us that game. I think Kayshawn would have added a lot. That's around like 15 points that we lost right there. But I think
Is he out for the
now,
year?
yeah, he is. I think he tore his ACL.
Mm.
But I think adding Traore, because we didn't have Traore before, and if he can build upon this 15 and 8 and average around like it seems like a 10 and 6 type of role, 11, and that 11 to 12. and like 6 to 8 rebound. That could be huge for us. Um,
Long Beach State. Interesting.
I think the biggest thing going forward for Louisville is just going to make sure everyone stays healthy and just playing winning basketball. We've been a team that's taken some of the most 3-point shots in the nation, and people are hating on that, but I don't think it's bad because I think it allows us to play exactly how we want to play. If you watch Terrence Edwards, he's a player who, at his best, is driving to the basket and then trying to make some weird angle post shot. And that's what he loves to do, and that's how he gets his rhythm. And then that helps him to step out and then shoot his threes. When you shoot a lot of threes, once you start to make them, and like I said, we have guys who historically have made them. So once they start to just and that's why we're starting to kind of get a lot of these really good wins now when things are getting the toughest. Is because players are starting to hit more what they're supposed to. Um, when you hit threes, it allows they're going to be selling out and trying to stop us from hitting threes. Our guys like Javon Hadley and Traore and even Chucky Hepburn, who can hit the three pretty well, he still likes to get to the basket. It's going to just allow them to just drive and kick a lot easier, making the whole offense just flow better. And at the end of the day, we're still going to play, the best defense that we can. And also a player that I really think is going to be big for us stepping up is our red shirt freshman Kanai Roots. He plays a decent amount, and he plays kind of like a hybrid power forward center kind of role. He's about like 6'8", 6'9". He's young. He can hit the three. He's a good cutter. He plays good defense. He's lengthy. His development throughout the season will be, I think, pivotal of whether we are anything in the ACC tournament and the tournament this year. Players like him who are inching out the ends are going to be playing those bench minutes when James Scott, our full starting big, goes out is going to be big. We're not really that big of a team for most standards. You would say we're undersized. So it's when those players who are bigger like him, 6'10", Noah Waterman, who plays more like a small forward, when they're playing, if they can eat up the boards and, kind of establish themselves, that's when we'll be different. So I don't know. I'm so excited for this year and what it means for Louisville as a whole. But at the end of the day, it's chop wood, carry water, and just move on to the next win. But Clemson and Pitt, those are our two next biggest dubs, and it'll be interesting to see how we move on. But I mean, you know, going into our next topic, college basketball has just been talented all around. Iowa State played Baylor, who's a very talented team from top to bottom, and still, just because of their experience and their defense, smothered them and just made it where it wasn't that Baylor wasn't scoring. It was just I almost felt like the game was just always out of hand. They stayed within like 10 for most of the game, but it never really felt like they were within 10. Um, so it's just teams like that. I mean, Houston, also getting a kind of a similar, dub. Teams like that where it's just when they're predicated on defense, like these defensive minded, uh, multi like upperclassmen teams. When it comes to that tournament time, they're going to be the teams that are probably going to get a lot of these upset wins because they just know what it's like to win in these big moments. So I'm loving watching these games.
Iowa State's definitely a team that I feel like over the last few years really has sort of cemented themselves as an elite team, and especially for them to do that in the Big 12, I think that's pretty huge. The Big 12 was arguably the best conference in basketball, at least the last few years. But I mean, when you think in like the past, like you think back like 10 years, Iowa State, never really heard of them. Like you would get your bracket, be like, oh, how the hell is Iowa State in here, and you mark it off. Um, but I mean, I don't know much about their players, but I do know that they've been a legit contender the last few years. They've been a high ranked team, and I always sort of like do a double take every time I see them in the top 10 the last 2 years. I'm like, oh, like wait a minute, like they're they're
but they're
actually
always
really good.
there.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I've more so been paying more attention to SEC and Big Ten stuff. So again, can't really speak on much about it, but I think that Tennessee, Auburn, and Duke are the teams to beat this year. Those are three teams that I think legit. And I know it's easy to cherry pick like the top 5 teams in the country right now. But if I had to say one, I'd definitely say Tennessee.
I was about to say I'd probably
Tennessee
leave
looks
Tennessee.
very legit.
Just throw
Um,
man basketball.
and so does Auburn. Again, Auburn also has been beating the crap out of teams, but who was the guy that they got? Um, Chaz Lanier. Chaz Lanier is Dalton Connect 2.0. I don't know if you've watched much of him, but he's shooting a 47% clip from three this year, and he's averaging 23 and 2, and they just picked him out of North Florida. So how they were able to find him is just ridiculous. But I mean, it was one game that I watched earlier this year. It was very early on against a solid team. I think it was Baylor. He opened up his first 6 threes were all water, every single one, and I was like, yeah, this kid's ridiculous. But Auburn also looks very legit. I know there was like talk of there being like a fight on the bus, like early on in the season, but I think that was more so just because the team was getting blown out, and there was a guy in the corner who wasn't getting the ball. Um, but yeah,
Yeah. Nah, and I think with those two teams, when you're talking about like that C is just deep all around. We were talking about it earlier. Even though they haven't really gotten to conference play yet, most teams only playing about 2 conference games so far as of this recording. No team in that conference has more than 4 losses. Not many conferences can say that. Um, also, they had a lot of teams going undefeated. Kentucky just beat Florida, but even then, it's talk about Tennessee. I know Lanier. He dropped 19 on Louisville. Obviously, bucket. It just seems like Tennessee has a way of getting these players that are invested in the program and staying there for a while, and just kind of and trying to get that championship that they haven't got so far. But they're everything that a championship program in college basketball should be without the championship. Um, so it's really going to be interesting to see how they go about the rest of this year and go about the tournament. And I think when you talk about Auburn, it's hard to not talk about Broome, Johnny Broome. I mean, he's just amazing. There was a game earlier this year that he had, I think, like 20 and 20 in the first half, and then ended the game with around like 24 and something where it was like, oh, he just didn't play that much because it was a blowout. Imagine if that game was close. When you have talent like that, it's like Auburn under Bruce Pearls. Again, they've been competitive almost every single year that he's coached them. So it'll be interesting to see. They also I don't know his name, but they have a rookie who is a sniper, and he kind of the way he plays is so. I say the best way to describe the way he plays, he's an oh no player. And when you see him, you're oh no, and it's like, but he somehow figures out a way to make it. He's creative. He takes shots that he has a confidence that players wouldn't normally have as a freshman. And I think that also really helps them. So
is it
I think they're a
Pettiford?
team. Yeah.
Yeah, Pettiford's solid.
It's exciting to watch him. Kentucky's a good team. Now they have Mark Pope as their coach, coming from BYU, just a really good coach. Solid roster from top to bottom. Also Florida. They even though they got beat by Kentucky again, just a solid team. So it really once they get into conference play, it's gonna see you're really going to see which teams are swimming and which teams are drowning, because they're going to beat up on each other, and some teams might have a chance to really maybe be a tournament team, but because of how tough their schedule is, may fall out. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. Um, and I'm really interested. But I mean, you also talk about Big Ten. That's big. Your team got a dub recently.
Yeah. They again, a team going into the year, I did not have super high expectations. I had high expectations last year, and they sort of got yanked from beneath me. just the people. We had a super high recruiting class. I mean, Xavier Booker was a 5-star that never saw the floor. Um, you had Jeremy Fears, who was a promising point guard. He got shot and was out for the year. I mean, it was sort of doomed from the start. And this year, I did not have high expectations, but the young guys have stepped up a lot. And it's the first time in a while that Tom Izzo has brought in a transfer, and he even brought in two, and both of them he's used pretty heavily. But more so, Zapala has been more of the bigger star as of late. He's been elite. I think it's definitely overseas. I don't know where it's from. I don't want to butcher it. Let me pull it up real quick. Poland. He's from Poland. And he had a huge game of the night. I mean, he had 15 points against Ohio State. Ohio State's a pretty solid team in the Big Ten. But yeah, I mean, when you look back at their wins, sure they're not like amazing. Like at the time, Carolina looked amazing, because it was like around a top 10 team. And but when you look at their losses as well, I think it's not as bad. I mean, they're beating the teams they're supposed to, and I think their statement win is probably Nebraska, just because I know Nebraska's been a pretty solid team the last few years. They beat them by 37. But similar to how Louisville wants to play, we play a very deep roster, and we share the ball around. We've got a lot of guys that crash the boards. Um, and I mean, no one on the team plays more than 30 minutes. They don't shoot the ball particularly well. I mean, this team is very similar to Louisville, just a little bit better, a little bit better, I'll say.
Okay. I really hope it'd be so nice if we could like see it actually play out.
That'd be cool. I can remember last time we played. Um,
Last
but
time
yeah,
we played, y'all would have had Romeo Langford, I think.
he went to Indiana.
Oh no, who's the other guy? He has like the funky jump shot. I'm trying to think of his name. He got injured. He plays for Raptors 905 now. Actually, I can't think of his name.
He plays for the
Maybe
Raptors from Michigan State.
you have a Gabe Brown.
Oh yeah, we had A.J. Brown, number
Yeah,
44.
yeah. Around that time when you guys had him, that would have been the last time
Okay.
we played.
I mean, we had Jaren Jackson. I mean, that's the thing. The Michigan State's had a lot of big name players come through the program. It's just never really been hasn't led to a championship in the last few years. And there's been a lot asked of Tom Izzo, like, oh, is Izzo still like an actually an elite coach? Is Izzo still able to coach in this era? I mean, he still has that tournament streak, which I think is longer than I think it's the longest. I know it's the longest active. Maybe Bill Self might have a longer streak. I'm not sure, but I don't think Izzo's ever missed a tournament, which is it's a crazy feat. Whether or not this team is not a title contender, I'll say that straight away. But I think they're a Sweet 16 contender for sure. It's a team that if you play them as like a 4 through 7 seed, I would not be excited to play them at all. Um, but yeah, I mean they pass the ball around, and there's no true star players, so there's no one you can really mark up on. The big weakness I'd probably say is just the 3-point shooting's bad. 2-point shooting's real bad. We shoot at like a 20% as a team. Um, and we've got a couple guys that shoot it pretty well, but for the most part, like the people that are taking the most shots are actually shooting it not as great. But yeah, Jaden Akins is supposed to be an NBA talent, so we'll see if he's able to pull it together. I mean, he was projected, I think, in early second round his like sophomore and junior year, and he decided to come back both times. Now he's back for his senior year, and hopefully he's able to build a strong profile. I don't know. I mean, he's the only NBA talent I could see on there. I can maybe see Jace Richardson playing in there just because he's so young, and his dad played in the NBA for a long time. But no, there's still definitely a lot to work on with Michigan State. Again, they're not a title contender. I don't even think they're a Big Ten contender, just because the Big Ten's so solid.
Yeah. All right. Well, moving into our last topic of the day, NBA. Victor Wembanyama, obviously showing early greatness throughout his career of, um, that some may not have expected. I don't say I thought he'd be as good as he is. I thought it'd take him at least maybe another year and a half to be where he is right now. Um, but there was a quote from an anonymous scout that said he's absolutely awesome on defense and not impactful at all on offense. He just looks like he's playing without a whole other direction. That they told ESPN's Tim Bontemps. Since they've said that about Wembanyama, he's averaged 29.6 points, 10.6 rebounds, 4.4 assists, 4 blocks on 40% shooting from the three and 64% true shooting. He's been absolutely balling. He's had coming off as of this recording, he had 2 back-to-back thriller games against Jokic, who obviously everyone knows one of the best players in the world, if not the best player in the world, and at times was besting him.
Yeah.
This is his second year. I mean, he's just now that was his 100th game. He's now scored more points than LeBron. He has more blocks than Hakeem
Yeah,
through 100 games. He
I've
has
got
more
the stats
rebounds
pulled up, yeah.
than I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, you can go ahead and say it. It's just I mean, he's having an amazing season, and he's bringing his team to a level that they won 22 games last year. I think they're at like 18, 17 wins right now. Um, I mean, you just can't. I mean, obviously Chris Paul added a lot to this team, and
Oh, for
from
sure.
mental of knowing the game and stuff like that. But I mean, even with Chris Paul's addition and Devin Vassell getting healthy, if Wemby wasn't playing at this high of a level, they would not be this this kind of team. But now that they are, not only do they have a chance to be a play-in team, if they play well enough with some of these injuries to these other teams and some of these other teams not kind of having a true identity like the Timberwolves, they could see themselves in the playoff spot if they play themselves well enough.
Yeah, no, I've got the stat pulled up. So he's got more career threes through 100 games than Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, Kyrie, a couple of big names right there. More career blocks through 100 games than Shaq, Alonzo Mourning, Mutombo, Tim Duncan, Olajuwon. Some pretty major names. More career rebounds through 100 games than Drummond, AD, Karl Malone, and then more career points through 100 games than AI, LeBron, Tim Duncan, KD, and Dwayne Wade. So I mean, we're watching an alien. I'll just
Yeah,
be straight up. I mean, and he's 19, right? 19, 20.
20. He's 20.
So we have to deal with that for another. I mean, as long as his body holds up, probably like at least another 10 years.
I mean,
I
he's
can't.
flexible. I think he can play forever.
I cannot imagine what this man would do on like an actual like competitive roster.
True.
Like it's genuinely terrifying. I mean, there were rumors of I know the Spurs trying to get Trey Young. I know they had talked about that, which I think would be a crazy combo. I think he just needs someone similar to Chris Paul, but was just a younger version that's also a threat for scoring. So I mean, what that combination is, I'm just not sure. I mean, even just something like I mean, scenario like where Hornets get the first overall pick instead of the Spurs, and you get to pair Lamelo and Wemby together. I mean that would have just been insane. No shade to Brandon Miller, obviously also an amazing player. Um, but yeah, I definitely think the Spurs are. I'm not going to say contenders, but I definitely think they're playoff contenders. The West is looking a lot different than I thought it would this year. I think we all thought the Suns would be a lot better than they were. We all thought that the Wolves would be a lot better than they were. Kind of surprising to see teams like the Rockets in second and teams like even like the Lakers. I mean, I don't think the Lakers are the fifth best team. Like if they played in a 7 game series, I know they've got LeBron. The Clippers have had most of their star players out the whole time. I mean, I think Kawhi just had his debut last night. Um, Even the Warriors, I think people were like a little bit low on the Warriors after losing Clay, but I don't know. It's definitely interesting to see how things have been turning out on both conferences. I mean, you've got something to talk about that team in Detroit a little bit later on, your hometown, not your hometown, but your current residence. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I've been it's been I haven't really watched a lot of regular season games, but I'll watch clips or highlights on my phone sometimes, and watching Spurs highlights is always good for the brain.
Yeah, and I think it's also I mean it's a long season. 82 games is a lot of games to watch for anybody, scouts, fans, anybody. I think it's more to focus on. Like you said, watching clips now and then after trade deadline, All Star game, really focusing in on watching a lot of those games as it gets to like the last 30. Um, I think when it comes to people who could you could pair with Donovan or not Donovan Mitchell with Victor Wembanyama, Trey Young doesn't seem like a realistic option to me, even though Atlanta is still not one of those top teams. When you look at it, I mean, Cleveland, they're pretty set. No, they're gonna be one of those top teams for years to come. Same with Boston, same with the Knicks, same with Orlando. I mean, and even with Milwaukee with the way they're set up. I mean, Miami too. Um, Atlanta's right there where they want to be in the thick of things. And it was funny when the season started. Everyone wanted to harp on how bad the you know East looked compared to the West. But I mean, if you look at the record now, it's like I mean, it's not too far off. Like they are better in the West. But I mean, the playing teams for the West are about the same as playing teams for the East, maybe just slightly worse. Um, but I think it's more realistic that you see someone like De'Aaron Fox get traded to the Spurs as they just fired Mike Brown.
That's
Um,
a really interesting
it's
one.
it's known that their owner to make very rash decisions. Um, they might just kind of blow it up, get as much as they can. Maybe they get Stephon Castle, try to build around him and Keegan Murray. Try to trade De'Aaron Fox and DeMar DeRozan and Sabonis for as much as they can get. And just because if you fire a coach like Mike Brown, who's a guy who's been around the NBA forever, people don't know he coached the Warriors for like a good year when Steve Kerr was having like health issues. He was actually one of LeBron's first coaches and LeBron's first day in Cleveland. He's been around the NBA for a long time. He's not a scrub coach, and he's not the reason that the Knicks are bad. The Knicks or the Kings are bad. The Kings are just not good because when it comes to how competitive and how deeply talented the NBA roster is, when you look at it and look at the margins, they're just not as good as some of those other teams. Um, I don't know. So I would say like De'Aaron Fox is probably more so somebody who I would look for Spurs to probably go after as a point guard option alongside Victor Wembanyama if they really want to go ahead and just like kickstart this reign of Victor Wembanyama's career that it almost seems at this point inevitable. Um, but you spoke about teams like the Suns who are struggling. It it is kind of interesting to see teams like OKC, Houston, and Memphis who are all very young teams. I mean, even the Cavs, um, Celtics, and Knicks, and Orlando, I would say for most purposes of contending teams, are relatively young. It's kind of nice to see that these young teams are besting out these teams that have the older stars because as these older stars kind of still fight to contend and stay relevant, the younger players are asserting their dominance as these next players are coming through. People are asking after Braun, Curry, Kevin Durant leave, who's going to step up? These players, Luca, Jokic. I mean, they're not the youngest, but still, even Tatum.
There
Uh,
we go.
I was gonna say it, bro. Chill out. Donovan Mitchell, Paulo when he gets healthy, Shea, Chet. The list goes
Jordan
on and on.
Walsh.
Ja. The list goes on and on. Um, it's nice to see that it's there's no guaranteed winner, and even with the Celtics' dominance, it's still up in the air of who will be in these next few years. Where for a while it was kind of I wouldn't say boring, but it was boring in the sense of of knowing who was going to be in those final few teams. You knew it was going to be some combination of Warriors, Cavs, and then kind of the field for a while, and then Warriors and somebody else, and so it's nice to everybody's kind of fighting
Have
for
some
their life
variety.
right now. Yeah, I mean everyone's fighting. It really is a dogfight. Even I mean the Knicks were up against the OKC by 13 points the other night and ended up losing by more than 10 in a game that they were up by 13.
That's the
That
Knicks, though.
complete. I mean, you say that, but I mean they're dominating.
No,
Like,
yeah, I know, yeah, yeah.
Cat is having his best season of his career, and honestly, if he plays like that, I don't know who can beat them. So I don't know.
Celtics.
I'm loving this season. I don't know, bro. Cats. I think the Knicks even have another level if they really wanted to be like one of those crazy teams. I think they'd be a lot better off kind of switching to Cat more one, Jalen Brunson more two, instead of kind of having two ones. Talking about Cat, obviously he's hooping. Timberwolves kind of struggling. I mean, it's a few months removed now. Who do you think won that trade?
Originally, I think I said I didn't like either side, and I think I almost leaned closely more towards the Wolves just because I didn't like that the Knicks let go of Dante. But I mean, you can make a strong argument that the Knicks like far and away won this trade now. I mean, you spoke on a little bit on the when we were talking before, but Cat looks much better as a true five. And for someone that's like, oh, like maybe he's not like maybe he's too soft for the culture or whatever. I don't know. I think Josh Hart sort of soaks up a lot of that pressure already on being like sort of the tough guy that they need, and he'll go out there and be the muscle. And there's a lot of guys in the Knicks I think have stepped up. Deuce McBride's also been really solid, and Jalen Brunson's always been that guy. I mean, this is a huge testament to Brunson taking that pay cut or restructure of his contract, which I think is why maybe you could see Brunson step back to being a two and letting Cat be sort of like the one. I think he's all about winning, and I think that with the recipe they have, they definitely could, for sure, give the Celtics some trouble.
Yeah,
I mean, it's MSG, it's the Knicks, it's the playoffs. Anything can happen. That's probably what I would have to say is my Eastern Conference Finals matchup right now, which I would love. That'd be awesome.
yeah. I mean, and I don't want to say anything right now. I think it's going to take a little bit of time before we truly know who won this trade. However, I think right now it's the Knicks are definitely favoring from it. In a sense of Cat's back with a coach that he's played for, and when he played for Tibbs, we already saw this of he played a lot more in the post. And I think that's really what is unlocking him is the fact that he can play inside out. He's doing everything. Um, and obviously he's still having those defensive issues, but I think once Mitchell Robinson gets healthy, and they have like a true NBA center to back him up or to maybe start alongside him,
I was gonna
that it
say, do you
can
think they'll do that?
I hope not, because with you seeing how well it works with him being five, I think it's better to have kind of a Drummond Joel situation going on than a Rudy Cat situation. Because at the end of the day, Cat is always going to be a defensive liability in the pick and roll. So I'd rather have everybody else on my team can pick up 1 through 4, maybe even potentially 1 through 5, depending on how you view Bridges and OG and Hart, depending on lineups. But I don't know. With Mitchell Robinson, you're kind of giving up deep. You're giving defense to take away a little bit of offense, which I don't know. I think it would be better to keep Cat's offense, but I think the biggest thing with this trade is, as I was talking about earlier, is when you have a problem like Ant of he said in the video that's kind of going viral, and people had a lot of discussion on the internet about it, of him saying he started the video off with saying the way we played against the Celtics was a good brand of basketball because they were double teaming me and I was passing the ball to my teammates. However, he said that he was a natural born scorer, so it didn't feel right to him and he doesn't want to play that way. And then a reporter said to him, like Mike Conley, he said, not at all. Um, I think this is just something. I think people are making a lot of an issue out of something that that's really nothing. Um, at the end of the day, I mean, what he's saying is correct. He is a natural born scorer. Mike Conley is not. Mike Conley's always been a pass first, defensive type of guy. Um, and
Respect Mike Conley.
yeah, no, my Conley's go.
No,
Um,
yeah.
but in the sense of for every superstar, you have to take that growth of being able to pass and make the right read. So then once they stop double teaming you because you're giving up so many turnovers, even though you're scoring a lot, you're also making assists, making your teammates better, which makes your whole team better, which then at turn will give you more points back in the end because when he can't double you because you're making the right read, you're gonna have the one on one. I think that's just something he has to learn. Obviously, you saw Devin Booker go through this. Um, Tatum went through this a lot quieter, but he still went through this where he had his struggles with, not passing as well as he could have to being one of the leading passers on y'all's team, but then also throughout the playoffs when y'all went to the finals. So it's just kind of the growth it takes as a score first player to learn what it really means to play the game. It's you can't just score at a high level. You have to score and then pass, and then this pass will in turn lead more scoring for you. So and Julius Randle's been playing good. He's averaging like 18 points on decent shooting from the field. He's still getting rebounds, and he's hitting the three, which for him is all you can really ask. Like I said, it really is going to depend on how can those other pieces and everyone kind of come into this new era of post Cat offense because now with Cat gone, there is nobody else for you to look at, and when they don't make it as far as they want to in the playoffs, if they don't, they're gonna look at Ant. You're the guy now, so everything's on him. So still for me, TBD on who won the trade, just because Julius Randle might end up becoming this crazy Chris Middleton piece. Um, so we'll see.
Oh, real quick, Ant was being doubled by Peyton Pritchard and Luke Cornett, but that's fine. But yeah, I have no problem with how. Again, he made all the right reads. His teammates just were making shots, and some nights it's going to happen. There'll be some nights where you double Ant, and that's just not going to work at all because Nas Reed's going to hit a shot, Jaden McDaniel's going to hit a shot. Um, I don't know. I did love that we were able to take advantage of Rudy Gobert. Everyone was sort of getting a piece at him. Uh, Even Nemus Cato was like backing him down and posting up, which I was like, damn, like it's crazy work. I don't know.
And they're paying a man a lot of money. A lot of questions are being asked. Is he fraudulent? Is he not?
Yes.
I mean, that's up to I think he's a good defender. I think he's just very much predicated on one system of if he has to be the hub of the defense, and if he's not the hub, it can fall apart very quickly.
See, in my mind, I'm just never able to put a player on the court, especially if I want to win a national championship, that only gives me defense. Even the greats like Tony Allen, like he was a great defender, but also was able to pass the ball and move around and create a shot, like create a lane if he needed to. Rudy Gobert really can't do much of anything other than play defense and maybe get the occasional rebound and put back. Like I've seen him try and do goofy layup packages. I've tried to see him do goofy play like post ups. It's like he doesn't know that he's like 7 foot plus. Um, that Jazz trade looks crazier and crazier every time. Like they really got a monster haul for him. Um, yeah, I mean, was it the right decision to move on from Rudy and Cat being together? Yes, but you got rid of the wrong guy.
Fair. I mean, I would have kept Cat, but obviously, I mean, this move, was made so they wouldn't be a double apron team. It's a
So you got
move
to
by
be to
the
win a championship, right? You got to be a quadruple
exactly.
apron team.
But the owner doesn't want that, and that I mean, obviously that's a problem that a lot of different people in the organization have with it. But that's what they did. Um,
Got to get his money up.
but moving on to another team that we haven't talked about, and got to shout out, a fan of the program and a part, Dusky, Jhyrah. Hey, the Pistons. As much as I hate on them, right now they are currently in the ninth seed, 17 and 18, right there in the thick of things with the Pacers and Hawks. I mean, even really realistically, the Bucks and the Heat, they're right there within one game of them. Cade's playing his best basketball. It seems like a sore is hitting his strides. I mean, You
I mean,
know,
streets are saying it's because he moved to Detroit.
it's because I gave him that luck.
That's what
Shoot,
that's what I that's what I heard.
I wish I could have gave my team this luck, the Raptors. But I mean, I mean, do you realistically do you think they finish this season in the play-in?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I mean, again, I think the East is top heavy. Not to say the East is bad or like not as balanced, but I mean, when you look at the teams that they're competing with, even teams like I don't know, like we'll say like the Pacers or like the Magic, for example, they're teams that have known to have skids. Magic are super injured right now. Um, the Hawks are consistently pretty unreliable. The Bulls are pretty unreliable. The Sixers are without a lot of their players most of the time. They lost McCain for the year. Paul George has been out a decent amount. I don't know. I mean, for them to be one of the top 10 teams in the East is not a crazy thing to say, especially if the Heat get rid of Jimmy Butler. I think they'll start to slide down as well. There's a lot of ways they can carve their way in there.
fair. Do you think they can get a playoff win?
No.
Yeah, fair.
Or they can win some games in the play-in. Maybe I don't know if they'll be able to win an actual series, but like if
Yeah,
they
yeah,
were to,
not a series, but like if they like play like the Celtics or Cavs, you think they get a single win?
they could beat the Celtics. The Celtics usually give up one game just like straight up, just because like sometimes like when their threes are not hitting, like if they're in a game where they shoot 28 or 29%, that's a game where the Celtics almost always lose no matter who they're playing against. Um, it's definitely gonna suck to miss Jaden Ivey for the rest of the year. Um,
That was 17 points.
yeah. But I mean, again, I mean, the Pistons are pretty deep. I mean, not necessarily star deep, but I mean, they've got a lot of guys that are able to go out there and get a bucket if you absolutely need
Tobias,
them to.
yeah, Beasley.
Not Tobias.
I mean he's been there. I mean, like, I'm not saying like he's like the best player, but I'm saying like if I had, he can still get a decent bucket. He still shoots. He's still a guy who's worthy of an NBA roster spot.
Yeah, maybe we could see Ron Holland step up. Let's see who else they got. Marcus Sasser could step up.
I really like
Um,
Michael Marcus Sasser.
Asar could definitely take a leap. I mean, I know you say he's playing really well right now, but I mean, he could take an even bigger scoring leap.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Jalen
I don't know. I mean,
Duran.
we'll see. Maybe they go out and add someone at the deadline if they're really going crazy. Maybe they could add Jimmy Butler.
Yeah, Jimmy Butler. I mean, kind of segue into our next spot. Jimmy Butler talked about not being able to find his happiness on the basketball court, um, ever. He won't be able to find it ever on a basketball court as long as he plays for the Miami Heat. Um, I think
Where that came from, I don't know.
it is another situation of Jimmy being traumatic.
Getting
However, I think it is deserved because at the end of the day, he it's I mean it's two sides to look at it. Pat Riley, his philosophy has always been the same. He is never going to pay an aging star. Even with a great like Dwayne Wade, he let him go, and that's why Dwayne Wade ultimately ended up going to Cleveland and then had to come back to Miami. He didn't pay Shaq. Um, he stood behind Spo when LeBron wanted to get rid of him. He is going to stay with Spo, and he's going to build and he's going to invest in the young guys who are best suited to help them for the future, which is Tyler Hero and Bam, whether that means immediate success or not. Of course, Jimmy Butler took them to two titles, and I think Jimmy Butler deserves to get paid because of what he's done for them. However, realistically, if they want to be what's best for the future is for them not to pay him and to let another team make that reach that might be a little bit more desperate for someone to, I guess, give them an immediate injection of championship titles, which there's been talks of like teams that the Suns traded for him. I genuinely don't think that's even possible because they're so hard in the salary, in second apron. But I think a team like the Warriors, I think a team like the
Warriors
Bucks,
would be good.
Bucks,
Bucks, I don't
maybe a team,
know. I definitely think that moves
maybe
up their timeline.
Yeah, but I mean, with Giannis, I mean, I think you always have to be right there. Whenever you have a star who is playing at such a high level, to not have a team that's legitimately um, giving them a chance to capitalize on that is just not fair. And I feel like that's kind of what the Warriors have been doing in recent years. That's kind of what the Bucks have kind of done. Giannis has found a way to win, um, beyond the organization sometimes. So I mean, even a team like the Nuggets, who are, it almost seems that they're still right there, but maybe you might not look at them as a team that's truly in that next tier. Even they might trade someone like Michael Porter Jr. for Jimmy Butler, just if they felt like that might take them over the edge. And MPJ's having one of his better years, but he's been prone to have a playoff collapse. What's his name? Jamal Murray's not playing like he's getting paid, but he's getting paid the way he is. So, I mean, it really is a question of who is desperate enough to need and want that last move to take them over the edge.
The Rockets.
I mean, they've already said they don't want to trade for him though.
Doesn't matter. Email will get him right. Email will get him right. I mean, if you're a team that's serious about like wanting to push your team over the edge, I'm looking at teams that more so are like. I've heard the Grizzlies could potentially do that.
Well, I would like him for their culture.
I don't know. I definitely think a team in the West.
Fair.
The
I mean,
Mavs.
yeah. I mean, you look at Jimmy Butler's stats right now. Keep in mind that the before in previous Jimmy Butler led Heat years, they were primarily a team that played inside out, allowing Jimmy Lee to get to the basket, which is the strongest suit. But now, because they have Tyler Hero, who's primarily a 3-point shooter, they play outside in, and cater more to Tyler and Bam, which is kind of why Jimmy wants to leave. Even then, Jimmy's averaging 18 points, 5 assists, and 6 rebounds on 55% from the field and 38% from three and 79 from the. He's having a very efficient year, like an extremely efficient year, where it's like, imagine, if he was on a team that maybe wanted to invest a bit more and kind of, letting him get the ball more, he might be averaging closer around like 23 points. And he can still probably play high level defense if he actually wanted to. So it
I think
really is just,
a lot of Jimmy's
yeah,
defense is just getting in your head, and I think he'll definitely be able to do that and like
exactly.
just put
Yeah.
him off their game. He's also able to get to the line and create foul shots, which is huge in the playoffs. That's why I think the Heat have been so good in the playoffs is because I mean, obviously because of Jimmy Butler, but because of how he's able to just sort of unlock that I'm not gonna let myself be the reason we lose this game. I'm gonna go and win. I'm gonna go and draw this foul. I'm gonna go and frustrate this player. I'm gonna go out and get in Grant Williams' head. I'm gonna let him think that he's able to guard me, and I'm gonna challenge him to do that. And really, that's the person that I want to guard me. So I don't know if there's like an amazing fit, but I think there's a couple teams out there. But also, I mean, does the team really want to bring that on? I mean, what are the odds that he just sits out the season with the Heat?
I think if he sat out with the Heat, that would be more because of their internal problems. Rather, I think if any, I mean, in his press conference, he said, "I could have basketball happiness on the court anywhere else." It just seems more so that the really like from reports, relationships between him and Pat Riley and the way that they play offense now on the Heat just don't coordinate with how he wants to play, what he wants his future to look like, and just where he's at right now in his life. Because he said like he was like off the court in Miami, I'm super happy, blah 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 blah. But I mean, even when they asked his teammates Tyler Hero and Bam about it, those press conferences were very awkward. They were like, "Hey, we're trying to win, and we want guys who are fully bought into what we're trying to do. And at the end of the day, if he's not bought in, he's not bought in. If he is, he is." And they were like, "I can't control that." And it kind of sucks that for guys they had, it seems he had a really good relationship with that to maybe it might just be their own core relationship to be bothered like that, but it sucks to see that. But I hope that they can get him out of there, or at least away from the team where this isn't a distraction to a team that, even though they are young, I mean, right now they're in the 6th seed in the playoffs, not to play in, and they can build upon that. So, hopefully they resolve this for both sides, for the betterment of both.
So do you think whoever gets him is getting him on a discount?
I would say so if he's traded this year, and they don't have to trade him this year. But if he is traded this year, I would say so just because of the fact of the most leverage you can get for a player when you're trading them is when they're playing a decent basketball run at the time they're trading them, just to show that they're still a good player, but then also showing that they're winning and needs that the other team need. And yes, you can check off needs the other team need, but there's always going to be the question of, can you control Jimmy? And control in the sense of, can you position his passion and love for the game in a positive way that results to empowering the people around your locker room? Because the way that Jimmy motivates locker rooms and challenges players is not meant for every single player. Some people don't like to be challenged like that. Um, so I think it would have to be a locker room that is built on hard nosed players that really are trying to grind and trying to be the best version of themselves. That would be the best for Jimmy to get traded to. I think a team like Sacramento that's on the verge of drowning and kind of being more of a Pistons with Andre Drummond in recent years. They were just they weren't bad, but they weren't good. Probably like a 30-ish win team. They're more likely to become that with Jimmy Butler and just be more of the same than they are to kind of start going back up. Or a team like Memphis, who is already playing really well and has shown that, and life has shown them that no matter how good and youthful you are, that it can be swept from under the rug from you. I think trading for Jimmy Butler could be a possible, good injection of now. I mean, as long as you're keeping your main core, Desmond Bain and Gigi Jackson and Ja and JJJ all together, I was getting there. You're okay. You're okay. I mean, beyond that, I mean, I think everybody else is pretty movable, even though they're playing good. Anybody else you wanted to talk about? Did you want to talk about your Celtics?
Nah, it's fine. I don't know. I mean, I think we are who we are. Am I disappointed to be losing this many games? Sure. But again, I mean, Missoula's talked about every conference. Like, I mean, we're just not making threes. We're like first in like a bunch of defensive statistics and first in a bunch of defensive statistics. It's just we're not making threes, and that stinks. I I might get a lot of shit for this. I really don't like Peyton Pritchard. I've said this to Robert a couple times. I really don't like him. He brings so much of a negative on defense, and I know there are times when he goes out there and he just balls out, but he's someone that you're never going to be able to use in a playoff game because it's either 0 points or 20 points. And if that's your six man, then you're costing yourself a crap ton of wins because you are saying, "Hey, we're gonna live and die by Peyton Pritchard." Um, I'm not saying he's the biggest issue. There's obviously a ton on there right now, but it is what it is. I'm not worried about the Cavs at all. I worry about the Knicks though, and I think the Magic would also be a matchup I don't want to see. Um, but just because I like their defense a lot, and the Magic always give us trouble. But yeah.
Yeah, I think this is a good spot to end the pod on. But I say one thing before we end the pod. Uh, is the Cavs are I think you're slipping on the Cavs. I think they're a little bit different than they were in previous years. I think Darius Garland. I think it was a big thing that he lost 12 pounds during the season and his mouth was wired shut. So I think the fact that he's back healthy and balling.
Yeah, that was crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Evan Mobley's playing a lot better. And I've always been a really big fan of Kenny Atkinson. I thought that teams in previous years should have really gone a lot harder at trying to get him in the coaching cycle, even when he still stayed on the Warriors roster. So I think they're kind of a good team that everything is hitting at the perfect time. But for me, the judgment on Donovan Mitchell and the Cavs is not on the regular season. And it's cool if they somehow go out and break the Warriors record of 73-9. That will be crazy. Like that will be crazy and historic. And that's cool. But at the same time, if you do it and don't win a championship / don't come close to winning a championship while losing in the conference finals or something like that, it means nothing. So at the end of the day, they're going to be measured by their postseason success. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, don't mean a thing without the ring.
Yeah. But any closing thoughts from you?
Gerard Mayo has been fired.
Wow, that is crazy.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, not a full surprise, but yeah, I guess Ben Johnson to the Patriots probably.
Yeah, I mean, we can go into that more in another episode. I'm sure, like when their more candidates get revealed. I would love Mike Vrabel, but we'll see. I do think the
Yeah,
Patriots is like the number one desired coaching position right now. When you've got you've got the keys to pretty much everything. You've got the most cap in the NFL. You've got a top 5 pick, and you've got a really promising rookie quarterback. So we'll see.
fair. Never,
Two promising
never
rookie
the Bears.
quarterbacks. Two promising rookie quarterbacks.
Yeah. But this is Jhyrah.
This is Max. This was
This
Can
is
You
Kane
Handle the Heat?
handling